So many reasons I can think of off the top of my head why Americans are addicted to air conditioning.
So many reasons, but the most infuriating one is that our buildings are built wrong. In A Great Stitch, Desiree Stevens talked about how it was because of white supremacy and colonialism. Indigenous people had air conditioning through streams of water built underneath the ground, or in ways that worked with the natural landscape, such as building in the shade. And there are so many more examples from what we call vernacular architecture. For example, wind catchers from Iran. A famously hot place, these were incredibly effective cooling systems. These traditional Malay houses are designed to be porous that allow for cross-ventilation. Here's another self-ventilating house from southern Turkey. So if the colonizers had not killed everybody and learned how they could naturally cool their buildings, we might not need air conditioning. So when y'all are like, oh, it doesn't matter the field of architecture is based in white supremacy, it's still like great design. It's bad design because we have to burn oil to not get heat stroke to live in these stupid buildings because you won't respect vernacular architecture.
Okay, so I'm researching where glasses and when glasses were invented. So like, you might be asking like, why the f are you doing this stuff? Well, I don't know if you noticed, but I have no nose bridge. It just goes over. And I'm wearing glasses and with nose pads. And if I take off my glasses, there are literal like grooves in my face because of the nose pads. So what's my thesis? So I pulled up a couple tabs, and guess what? All of them say something in Europe. Now tell me that is not racist. The origins of glasses assume that you have a nose bridge high enough, and guess what? If you don't, you have these little, I don't know, replacements, alternatives. But if I have to have physical pain from not having a nose bridge and something I can't control, that's racist.
You want me to stop eating watermelon on camera because I'm black?
Yes. Yeah. What's not clicking? In America post-slavery, post-emancipation, black farmers were only allowed to grow watermelon. People associated the fruit with uncleanliness because it's so messy to eat, and laziness because it's really easy to grow. And of course, white people weaponized this against black people. And this is like, well into the 20th century. People who saw things like this are still alive. So to sit there and act like you're just eating watermelon innocently, girl, bye.
If you're seeing this, you've reached Classical Music is Racist TikTok. The fact that classical music, which is really the music of 18th century Western European cis-straight white male composers, is valued as the highest form of art music in America is an example of white supremacy. Those who go to college to study music will spend countless hours studying music theory, Western music history, and more, and most schools only have one class requirement or no class requirements for world music. This means that educators are woefully unprepared to meet the standards of understanding global interdisciplinary and 21st century connections with music. Task forces like this one are arguing that the music major needs to be changed to be more all-encompassing and actively anti-racist. But in the meantime, those who are music educators have to struggle and wrestle with the question, how can I be actively anti-racist in teaching music in a system that values white supremacy?
So we've ascertained that the fitness industry is racist. So it should come at no surprise when I tell you that diet culture is racist as well. How? By encouraging women to try and attain the bodies of thin white women. And all it takes is a little bit of discipline or motivation. If you fail, or if you can't get that body, well, that's your fault. Whatever.
Why the f*** is our healthcare tied to our employment?
Racism. You see, immediately after emancipation, white folks didn't want to give black folks healthcare. They were afraid of healthy black people while simultaneously viewing them as unworthy of receiving healthcare. And do you know what was a great way to keep black people from accessing that healthcare? Tying it to the jobs that they were being denied. This is just one of many, many consequences of slavery and racism that we don't talk about.
Here's your reminder that fat phobia is rooted in racism. As always, if you haven't read this book, go do that. The main thing to understand is that for the last 300-ish years, white folks have been marketing fatness as a black trait. And this is regardless of whether or not black people individually were actually fat. That was irrelevant. The message they spread was that black women specifically were ravenous and uncontrollable, and these barbaric traits made them fat. On the flip side, thinness was marketed as a white trait. Again, regardless of whether or not individual white people were actually thin, that was irrelevant. The idea was that white women specifically were refined and restrained, and this led them to having delicate, thin bodies. Over the years, these messages have become more subtle, but even today, they are still very prevalent in conversations around race, health, capitalism, and poverty.
I have waited a really long time to make this TikTok, but it's time. Happy birthday, Malcolm X. Here we go. It starts with this tweet. Please pause to read. This guy was 45 before he found a Band-Aid in his own color. But for those that it's really not obvious enough about, it's not about the Band-Aid color. It's about the racism and the systems behind that color. It's about black people being unrightfully targeted. It's about the classist system that continues to feed racist undertones in our society. It's about the crib to cage pipeline for black men. And it's the fact that us, as white people, get to sit back and not care. White privilege isn't about not having to do everything. It's not that we haven't struggled with things. It's that the things that we've struggled with don't have to do with the color of our skin. It's about the fact that we're not changing the system because we're not even showing it's there. We need to wake up and pay attention.
So when I was in my 20s, I got pulled over by the cops. My car was a mess. I could not find my registration for the life of me. I was polite. I was respectful, and the cop just let me go. He said to find it, and I'd be okay. And that works really well if you're white. And if you're not, it gets more contentious. I can't imagine how that would have gone if I had been black or Hispanic. That's what white privilege is. You don't know the little ways that the system works to let you off. It doesn't give you everything. They're not tossing out free money to white people, usually. But it doesn't take away as much.